You're logged in to In the Mix Radio. In the Mix Radio. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have ignition. Strap in. You're about to listen to the hottest sounds in the mix. In the mix.
Damn, that green. Damn, take this off. I keep forgetting about that. All right, we rocking the baldy tonight. Peace. Peace and elevation. Welcome to the Wake Up Project with Brother Mike X. We got a strong show tonight, prayerfully. Hoping that we could get some good energy going between, myself and the family. Last Sunday was Father's Day. And, I decided to do a show to pay homage to, the strong fathers and to challenge, fathers and men in general, to step up and do what we have to do to regain our positive presence within the neighborhoods, our positive presence of love and respect, within the family and within the neighborhoods. And that show last week, man, that show was a rough show. Rough, very rough. The energy was way down. I expected, honestly, that we were going to have, some callers in, some people who wanted to share positively about their experiences with their fathers, with their dads, and and we could get some positive dialogue going on. There was no energy. There was no energy at all. And I struggled to really keep that show flowing for 2 hours, And for those of y'all who just finished watching the NBA playoffs, whether you are pro LeBron or whether you are a LeBron hater, so to speak. I could relate, to what LeBron probably was feeling throughout this season, for those of y'all who watch basketball, when he had nobody really consistently to rely upon, to come through with some positive energy that he could depend upon as he sought to carry his team towards the playoffs and hopefully, to the championship. And that's how I felt last Sunday, man. And striving to keep the show going, keep the conversation going. And we have to be there for one another as a people. We have to be there for one another. First and foremost, we got to be there for ourselves. We have to learn how to come into the most positive expression of love and truth in our own lives, to build up courage, to build up discipline, to build up commitment, to be different, not to fit in, but to be different and to lead, And that particular show, we was talking about the men. Yo, brothers, we got to get it together, man. We got to get it together, man. And I'm not saying that there are not positive brothers out there, because I know quite a few. But if you weigh the positive brothers out there versus those who are missing, It doesn't add up, man. In my experience as an activist, someone who has been striving to breathe positive inspiration and encouragement into the communities, into our people, you know, particularly where I grew up in the Northeast Bronx, New York City. Over my time on social media, starting off with MySpace and then going into YouTube and Facebook and Instagram. A lot of times I've seen more sisters doing their thing than the brothers. Even as far as the Wake Up Project podcast. And we've been broadcasting every Sunday since the beginning of March. Most of the callers in, not all, but most of the callers in, once again, are the sisters. And I thank you for that. I thank you, you know, sisters, for doing your thing. I know a lot of you have been forced, you know, to stand in the gap and to try to do something that you're not really capable of doing, you know, to take the place of the masculine principle in the family, in the neighborhoods, in the community. And you've strived, you know, to do so. And I thank you for that. You know, over my time again as an activist in the community, in Edenwald Projects, where I grew up, in the groups, you know, that I have strived to bring forward, you know, through my creativity and imagination. Shout out to the Open Mind Association, a group that we started in May of 1997. Shout out to the North Bronx Black Leadership Institute, another group that we strive to get up off the ground in the Northeast Bronx. Again, a lot of these efforts were dominated by the female principle, and that's a very important principle. But it's not enough to bring balance, you know, to bring the union of strength and nurturing, you know, of love and discipline. We got to bring back that union between our men, the masculine principle, and our women, the feminine principle. So having said that, you know, we're going to do the best that we can to continue this. And, you know, we're striving behind the scenes and having conversations and connecting with people, calling people to strive to add on, to use their strengths to cover our collective weaknesses. That's what unity is about. To take advantage of, you know, some of the opportunities that are out there to take advantage of through the digital world, you know, so to speak, that has given us the freedom, a freedom that we didn't have once upon a time. Once upon a time, in order for you to broadcast a show like this, man, you had to have a major, you know, monetary budget. You know, you had to be connected to some type of product or service or corporation. You had to be backed, you know, by deep pockets. And a lot of times, you know, being subject to having to be backed by deep pockets, you couldn't say what you wanted to say. You had to say what they put it in front of you to say. But now we have a freedom to broadcast messages out to our people, man, and we need to take advantage of that. And we can't just leave one individual with the responsibility of carrying the whole load. A lot of us, we have to learn how to, you know, support one another, even if we're not asked to. You know, you might have a gift or a talent that you know you have that the person who's striving to carry this load doesn't know you have. So if they don't know you have the talent, how can they ask you to supply it? We got to start taking the initiative, to join on with one another. So the call-in numbers are 718-405-4959 or 914-969-6499. And so I definitely want to hear your voice tonight, but even more so, because monologue is dope. I've been the type of person, who studies, and strives to empower, myself with knowledge, with wisdom, with understanding, with truth. I'm used to speaking in front of a microphone or audience, about the issues and the subject of black empowerment, or just empowerment in general. And even still, with almost 30 years of practice, I get butterflies too, sometimes that I have to fight through, So I know that some people are not used to, we've dealt with the shyness, people talking about they shy and, I'd like to call in or whatever. So let me offer you something else that you can do to help this be a more powerful dialogue instead of just a monologue. You sitting here for 2 hours listening to me. Through the Facebook Live, you can ask a question, leave a comment, and what I'm going to strive to do is, of course, if you call in, I'd rather hear your voice, because there's some of you who I've been interacting with over the last couple of years through, particularly Facebook. And we've instant messaged each other, or we've commented on each other's statuses and posts. But hearing that voice, man, it just brings us a little bit closer, I mean, social media is dope because it's allowed us to connect. Some of the people who have been calling into the show are in Texas. Some of them are in Chicago. You know what I mean? Some of them are in different. I think we had one from Los Angeles at one point, and that's dope. But we should never. There's a downside that a lot of people are afraid of, that if we just rely upon social media or just computers or emailing and things of that nature, that we will start to lose the human touch. So I think we need to take advantage of both. So I would love to hear your voice tonight, but then again, like I said, you also can leave a question or a comment in the live feed through the Facebook Live. So I say peace and elevation. I see Sister Hollywood. Peace, sis. I see Tanya. I see Kelly. I see Queen Low Glenn. My sister LP. It was wonderful dialoguing with you this afternoon, family. The King, my man Antoine King. Brother, man, I need to get in contact with you, brother. And I know we both got busy schedules, man, but I definitely need to get in contact with you, And family, you can call my phone anytime. I pay my phone bill. You know what I mean? Anytime. If I could pick up, I'm going to pick up. But I definitely want to work with you. So, what we're going to talk about tonight, we're going to talk about the need for us to reconnect ourselves, to let go, of settling for being down and out. The topic that I sent out there, out with the old, in with the new. fighting for the manifestation of the God/goddess in you. And I know that a lot of us are used to operating from the way we see things. A lot of us are so caught up in our particular cultural, spiritual, political outlook, that it's hard for us sometimes to look for that common ground. And it's hard for us sometimes to really decide that I'm going to live the type of life that the truth is beckoning me to live myself. But this is where your personal power lies. Any solution that starts outside of you is not really a good solution, because that's disempowering. That's taking it out of something that you can directly connect with. And we're going to talk more about that tonight. So family, what I'm going to do right now to set this show off, your brother has been on YouTube for a number of years. And, I've been putting messages of empowerment, of encouragement, of personal responsibility. And I'm going to show one of those right now, to get the energy flowing. And I'm going to hold off on the phone calls while the video is showing. But I definitely will strive to interact with those who are in the Facebook Live. I appreciate your presence. I appreciate this moment that we're in right now. It's pregnant with possibilities. I'm going to continue to strive to do my part, and I hope that you will continue to strive to do yours. So we're going to go to the video right now. The Unite or Die one. Part 15. Peace and blessings. This is Brother Mike X. Welcome to another clip from my YouTube channel, Brother Mike X Speaks. Tonight, I just want to build with you right quick. I just came out of, one of my last study sessions from my second home, Barnes & Nobles in Bay Plaza, Co-op City, the Northeast Bronx. The forces of gentrification are making their presence felt in the Northeast Bronx, and they're going to be closing, this Barnes & Nobles as of the 31st of December. And for me, it's crazy, man, because I've been coming here for like 10 years. If I'm not at work, a lot of times I'm here, studying, doing the knowledge, networking, building, meeting a host of wonderful, great people. And, so this place is definitely going to be missed by me. And in some ways, I got to admit, it's kind of going to be like bittersweet, bitter, of course, man, because this has been such a large part of my life over the last 10 years, man, that I'm going to miss this place most definitely. But sweet, because I recognize and realize that there's a lot of work that needs to be done in the communities, and the time that I would be spending here has to be filled up with something else. And I definitely plan to be more productive, and striving to apply, the consciousness, the knowledge, the wisdom, the understanding, the truth that I've been able to track down through coming up in Barnes & Nobles, man. Those of you in the Northeast Bronx who know me, y'all know me not just as someone who strives for higher awareness and consciousness, but you also know me as someone who has put effort in on the activist side, to strive to bring people together, so that we can begin to build socially, that social unity and cohesion, which opens us up to being able to build and enjoy political and economic power, potentially. The foundation is your unity. You can't be strong politically
And you cannot be strong economically if you don't have that unity and that cohesion, you know, amongst yourself as a people, you know. So, yo, man, it's December, you know. It's actually December 2nd, you know, 2017. And in this time, a lot of times at the end of the year, people want to close out the year strong, and they want to go into the next year even stronger. You know, it's a time when people begin to reflect on how the year went, you know, and how did they meet the goals that they set for themselves, you know, those New Year's resolutions, you know what I mean? And a lot of people are going to be making New Year's resolutions pretty soon. And you know, especially now, man, for my people, for black people, it shouldn't just be regarded as New Year's resolutions. It has to be new life resolutions, you know, because we are in a time where we're going to have to lean on each other and rely on each other more now than ever before. You know, this is a time when those of us who believe in God, you know, from whatever particular spiritual or religious background that you practice, you're going to have to really strengthen that bond with God, the creator of all. And so, you know, I say all praise is due to the Most High God. You know, I thank you, God, for allowing me to live as long as you've allowed me to live, because I was a particular brand of knucklehead in my youth. You know, and even now I'm striving to make up for mistakes that I've made. Even now I'm striving to come into a peace and serenity in my life where I turn from the world and the lowly customs and habits, man, that I at one time felt was so important, and turn to the divine purpose, you know, for which my life was created and has been maintained, you know, by you, you know. And for those of you who don't believe in God or believe in the creator, you know, hey man, what can I say? You know, I can understand that there's been a lot of chaos and confusion sown, you know, that has disconnected man from the source of his creation, man. But the only thing that I can do is strive to walk in the power that has been revealed to me, you know. So, and I say, you know, I don't particularly trumpet one religious, spiritual perspective over another. You know, I look at God in a spiritual capacity. You know, I believe that God is the sum total of all truth, revealed and not revealed. You know what I mean? God is they say is omnipotent. You know, when you deal with the concept of God, God is omnipotent, all powerful, omnipresent, meaning everywhere throughout the universe. And omniscient, you know, all-knowing, you know. And as human beings, we have been blessed above all creatures on this planet with the ability to think, to reason, to learn, to grow, and to come up into the higher consciousness of God, you know, in our finiteness, you know, in our limited capacity, you know. We are able to understand more and more of the truth of God and discern, and to be able to create, you know, through that consciousness, wonderful things, man. You know, airplanes that fly through the sky, rocket ships, satellites, you know what I mean? Bridges and just all types of things, man. The tapping and the utilization of electricity and nuclear power and all types of things man has been able to create. The problem is that in all of that intelligence, man has not cultivated a spiritual practice of love, of mercy, of compassion. You know, in all of that intelligence, man has still held on to his ego. You know what I mean? And as some people say, the ego is an acronym for edging God out. So a lot of people have been blessed with the power to come up into the thinking of God, but instead of them bowing down in submission to the Most High God, they've wanted to become gods besides God, and they've wanted to rule over other people, you know what I mean, as God, you know. And this is where, you know, the hatred, the confusion, the darkness that reigns supreme on this planet. This is what it's rooted in. And the only solution to being able to overcome that has to be the activation of each one, reach one, and teach one. You know, it's time for each one of us, man, to choose truth over lies. It's time for each one of us to teach, to reach for, you know, a reunion with God over submitting ourselves to the lowly, divisive customs of this dark and decaying world, man. Stop trying to go along to get along and return to your creator. You know what I mean? And then you will be able to become liberated from those lowly customs so that you can begin to exhibit the power, you know, to remake and reform your life, you know, in the light of love, in the light of truth, and be a beacon of hope for other people. So, family, I say to my people, black people particularly, you know, what's on my mind right now is a book that I read a long time ago and probably need to reread again soon to refresh, you know, my awareness, my, you know, of that particular book and the truth that it represented. And I'm thinking of the book Up From Slavery by Booker T. Washington. You know, Booker T. Washington was he was born in slavery, you know, around about 6 or 7 years before slavery was officially, you know, done away with. And in his book, he talks about his remembrance as a child of, you know, like a white man riding up on a horse with basically like a scroll, you know, and announcing to the enslaved population that you are now free. You know, the Emancipation Proclamation and all of that, and you are now free. And he talks about how there was a celebration, you know, that erupted, you know, because by this time, generations upon generations upon generations of slavery, enslavement had existed amongst Black/African people in the United States. And even before the United States was officially formed, slavery had reigned supreme. By that time, the enslavement and what became America, it had existed for over 300 years by this point. So you could imagine that there was, you know, a celebration that erupted. And he talked about how this celebration lasted for about, you know, half an hour to an hour from memory. It's been a while since I read this book. And then he talked about how a spirit of depression and melancholy began to creep over, you know, the former slaves, you know, at this point, and they became depressed, you know, in their energy, you know. And he talked about how about, you know, say 20, half an hour, you know, minutes afterwards, how they was going back up to the big house, you know, to contract with their former slave master to keep them on, you know, and to help them to make sense of what is this thing, freedom. You know, they had never known freedom. They didn't know what freedom actually meant, you know, because they had been trained all of their lives to be enslaved and to be dependent upon white people for their existence, you know, and all types of division had been sown amongst them. You know, the men had been divided from the women. The older had been divided from the young. You know, the light skin had been divided from the darker skinned. You know, the enslaved who worked in the big house, you know, had been divided from the field Negroes who lived in the huts and had to work out in the fields. So they didn't know how they would be able to be free without dependency on their masters. And you know, family, as much progress seemingly has been made, you know, in America, as I look at it, and as a lot of people look at it, man, we're not much better off in 2016 going into 2017 than we were at that point in the 1860s, you know, when slavery officially ended. basically we're in the same position. Yeah, there might be a little bit more opportunity. You know, yeah, you can get up and you can go when you want to go and come when you want to come. But as far as the rules, the principles, the standards of what it takes to become a free people, you know, who are able to take advantage of the concept of self-determination, meaning that you're able to determine for yourself how you want to set up and run your own communities and to order your own affairs as a people. You know, this is the right that has been denied Black/African people in America, you know, and everybody else has been able to take advantage of that human right. You know, that citizen right, you know, that citizenship right as an American citizen, that human right as a child of God. Everyone else has been allowed to take advantage of those rights and to build and carve out their own geographic enclaves and bend those geographic places where they live to their social, political, and economic will. So you have Chinatowns, you have Little Italies, you have Little Koreas, you know, you have all of these things. You have the Jewish communities, you know, where they own the whole thing. Upwards, downwards, diagonally, left to right is theirs. But it's only when it comes to the Black/African neighborhoods that you see this caricature, you know, this colonization, where you see the overwhelming numbers a lot of times dominated in these areas. It's like, you know, we're the dominating population there, but we've been kept from the knowledge, the capacity, you know, to exist as free people, you know, to be able to organize ourselves socially, you know, so that we can begin to exhibit the type of economic and political power that will give us control over our neighborhoods. And so I say at this point, family, because if you've been building with Brother Mike, you know what I mean? If you've been checking out my YouTube channel, Brother Mike X Speaks, you know, some of this I've covered before, so I don't want to be redundant. But I do want to just give this message, man, as we come to an end of the of 2016, as we come to an end of 8 years of the Obama presidency, as we begin to move into the presidency of Donald Trump. You know, as we recognize and realize that we don't have any friend on high, you know, that we can cast our hopes onto, whether it's Obama or a lot of people was hoping that it would be Hillary, you know, because they believed that Hillary would give them, you know, some type of illusion, you know, of, you know, reliance, you know what I mean, above and beyond a Donald Trump. And that's debatable. You know, from my standpoint, man, I don't see it. I don't see that we would have been better off, you know, with the Hillary Clinton presidency. I don't think that we would have been any better off with a Hillary Clinton presidency than we would have been under 8 years of Barack Obama, because we didn't fare that well or that much better, you know, under the Barack Obama administration. And some people will get mad for me saying that, you know, but it's the truth. You know, we didn't see an uprise in political power, you know what I mean, to where the politics and the politicians, you know, were seeking to build a stronger relationship with us as black people, you know, seeking to use their representation, whether it was in the city council, whether it was in the state assembly or the state senate, you know, whether it was in Congress or the big Senate, federal, you know, we didn't see a whole lot of efforts or moves being made on our behalf, you know. And as a matter of fact, you know, Barack Obama said many times that I'm not the president of Black America. I'm the president of the United States of America, you know. And in that time also, you know, the LGBT community was able to win, you know, major victories and attention coming to them from Barack Obama. You know, and other communities were able to get their, you know, things on their agenda done. But when it came to us, you know, nothing really happened. And again, you know why that happened? That happened because we are divided and conquered. We are disempowered. You know, most of us don't know how how to live our lives in a way where we can take ownership over our lives as men, as women, to where we can begin to build from a like-minded point of view, you know, and standing with each other and beginning to, you know, lock arms as one. Again, like I said, that social unity and cohesion to where we can begin to grow in political power, you know, so that when we go to vote, we don't just go to vote because you know, with the mindset our people fought and died, you know, so that we can vote, you know, because no, our people did not fight and die just so that we can vote. Our people fought and died because they believed that the vote could be used as a tool to produce good things, you know what I mean? Policies, you know, that would help us to take stronger hold on our citizenship as American citizens and as children of God. That's why they fought and died to try to give us that right to vote, you know? So, family, here I go. What do we have to do at this point? First and foremost, family, we gotta start at the lowest common denominator. You know, a lot of times, man, we focus on the bigger picture. A lot of times, too much, you know? A lot of times we focus on the system and what white people and other people are doing, you know? And we don't focus enough on ourselves individually, as men, as women. You know, a lot of times we focus on, you know, our people and the ignorance of our people. You know, our people don't want to learn. Our people are deaf, dumb, and blind. This is what I hear from, you know, my comrades in the so-called conscious community. You know, whether they be Moors, whether they be 5%, whether they be Christians, whether they be black nationalists, whether they be Pan-Africanists or whatever. A lot of times there's too much focus on the system. You know, there's too much focus on those who don't got the knowledge yet, you know, and they're living, you know, their lives, you know, from their point of view, wrong. And there's not enough emphasis on what are you doing, you know what I mean, as an individual, you know, to breathe life into, you know, your life, you know, to take ownership of your life physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. You know what I mean? So you can live that uplifted life so that you can begin to exhibit power, you know, not just exhibit the fact, man, that you read some books, that you listened to some DVDs, you know what I mean, that you checked out some documentaries, you know, but no, you're living an empowered life, different than the lives that are lived by the average everyday black folk who are still caught up in the system. You know, and I'm saying this to say, you know, so what you saying, brother Mike, you free and you empowered and all of that? Nah, family, yo, I'm still trying to walk this out. You know what I mean? I'm still trying to grow. But I have come to the realization, man, that instead of focusing on the outside, you know, whether it be, you know, those who are in the system, you know, I mean, the system, you know, who are running the system, or focusing on whoever don't want to get down with this consciousness thing. No, I am to focus on myself. You know what I mean? Focus on seeking the truth of my existence. Focus on applying the truth to my existence. You know what I mean? So I can defeat the opportunistic ailments, man, that are destroying us. You know, the diabetes, the stroke, the high cholesterol, you know, all of the opportunistic ailments, man, that are destroying our community because we're eating the wrong foods. You know, we're eating foods that are not compatible with maintaining a healthy and vibrant physical life. You know what I mean? So that we can begin to wean ourselves off of listening to all of the ratchet, you know, music. You know, the love and hip hop is back on, and Empire and all of these other things, man, that's striving and you know, and not to mention keeping it real. You know, the NBA, you know, who's better, LeBron or Curry or whatever. All of that stuff, man, is designed to keep us from looking at the position that we're living in right here and right now, and taking ownership and control over how we're living our lives, you know? And are we able to take advantage of our lives to be productive and creative so that we can build our own communities again? You know what I mean? So number one, family, I just want to say, and I want to wrap this up because I've been talking for a little while. We need people, man, who are seeking to do the knowledge, you know? What do you mean? You say that all the time, brother Mike, do the knowledge. I'm saying, when I say do the knowledge, I'm saying, yo, seek information that you can begin to apply to make your life a better life as an individual, you know, so that you can make the proper stance, you know, to, again, heal yourself, you know. I found at one point in my life, family, that diabetes, man, was getting ready to take me up out of here. And this is just me being transparent with you. You know, diabetes was getting ready to take your brother up out of here, man. A good year and a half, you know, ago. You know, and what was most hurtful for me, you know, was a lot of my family on social media and others who knew me personally, when they found out that your brother was in that precarious position, you know, of dealing with diabetes and possibly heading towards amputation or worse, a lot of them was like, yo, you know, you, as much as you know, you getting ready to tap out the diabetes? Like, they really went in on me. But I appreciate it, though. They really went in on me. They like, yo, as much as you know, that's what you're getting ready to fall victim to? They was like, come on, brother. You know what I'm saying? You're supposed to be above and beyond that, man. And they was dead honest. They was right on point with that. You know, and I'm happy to say, man, that through the grace of God, that wake-up call was a real one, you know? Because what I was doing was, I was just feeding one faculty of my life, you know? I've been into doing the knowledge, man, seeking, you know, truth for 25 years now, man. So mentally, man, I feel like I'm cock diesel, you know what I'm saying? But physically, I was in the fast food restaurants. I was drinking soda and juice, you know what I mean? With loads and loads of sugar, you know? And I knew that I had a diabetic condition, but I wasn't focused on keeping this body strong, you know, striving to heal my body and make it vibrant, you know what I mean? So that I can live long enough to put into practice all of the consciousness, all of the truth, all of the books that I was reading, man. So I was contradicting, you know, I was living a contradictory, imbalanced life. I was focused heavily on the mental aspect, but I was paying no attention at all to the physical aspect. So this was a wake-up call, family. It made me realize, man, that when you lean too far to one side, what do? If you lean too far to the left or you lean too far to the right, you lean far enough, you're gonna fall over and bust your behind, right? You know what I mean? The first thing that we gotta begin to do in these communities is we gotta seek to begin to balance the attention that we're paying to our own individual lives. Forget Trump. Forget police brutality. I shouldn't say forget that, but you get what I'm saying. You know, you can't do nothing about Trump. You can't do nothing about police brutality if you're living an imbalanced life. You know, if you're practicing life in a way where you're feeding yourself poison and garbage, you know, and opening yourself up, man, to heart disease and stroke and diabetes, you know what I mean? That's what's gonna take you out. It's not gonna be the police. You don't gotta worry about the police taking you out. You're gonna take yourself out. You know what I'm saying? If you are feeding yourself mental garbage, you know, the music, you know, the all of the stupid, filthy, you know, programming, get that? They're programming you through the radio, through the TV. You don't gotta worry about somebody else taking you out, because you're taking yourself out. You see what I'm saying? You're taking yourself out, man, by feeding your mind with pollution, with garbage, You know what I'm saying? And because you're feeding your body, you're feeding your mind with garbage, there's no way that you can come into a space and place of peace and serenity in your emotional equilibrium and balance, man, so that you can learn how to love yourself, you know, so that you can learn how to treat yourself with compassion, with forgiveness, for mercy. You know what I mean? You can't treat anyone else with love, with mercy, with compassion, with forgiveness if you haven't been practicing those things. But if you're not practicing physical health and well-being, if you're not practicing mental elevation and growth and consciousness, there's no way that you can come into a peaceful and serene emotional equilibrium and balance. So there's no way that you can build the necessary relationships that you need to be able to build with your friends, loved ones, family, and neighbors. So there goes unity out the window. You know what I mean? So, yo, family, man, you know, I'm almost at a half an hour, man, and I know that some of our people don't have the attention span, you know, to listen this long. And I don't mean that as disrespect. I just mean it as the truth, because some people have said that to me. So, on that note, we're going to continue this conversation, family. We got a lot of work to do, you know, and I tell you, family, this is a good time to be living. This is a good time to be living, you know, because the illusion that we was going to be maintained forever, you know, by some benevolent force from on high, it's been ripped away, you know. Like I said in the last video that I did, man, when Donald Trump made his mantra, "Make America Great Again," he was talking about that time back in the 20s, back in the 30s, back in the 40s, man. You know, where black people, where segregation was in full effect, you know, and at that time, the good thing about that time is that we knew we didn't have a friend in the White House. We knew that we didn't have friends on high. We knew that we wasn't accepted, you know, by the governmental, corporate powers in the country. So we knew that we had to rely upon one another. We knew that we had to practice a social unity and cohesion so that we can supply our food, clothing, and shelter for ourselves, because integration, the illusion of integration, had not been open to us at that point. So as they talk about, you know, make America great again, I say, yo, let's go back to that time when we had to practice love. We had to practice compassion amongst one another. Because if we didn't, we knew that it was good night, man. You know what I mean? So having said that, I say peace and blessings to you, family. I hope that you get something out of what I shared with you tonight, man. I pray that the Most High will visit you, you know, and help you to begin to make some type of realistic peace with your past, so that you can recognize that every day that you awaken is a new opportunity to begin to build a much improved, invigorated, and vibrant life, man. You know what I mean? So that you can, having done that, you can begin to offer good things, man, to the family, you know, so that we can build the way we supposed to build. Peace and blessings, yo.
Hey, peace, family. Welcome back. That was one of the longer videos that I've done. A lot of the videos that I used to shoot, you know, I kept it to like 15 minutes. And, you know, I just decided to play the whole thing because I felt like if I cut it in half, you know, it would have been incomplete. So right now, we're going to open up the phone lines. My sister LP says, those who are aware of the power within their being and know how to use it can't help but emanate that power, that light. And it draws those who need the guidance and want to know, how do I do that too? And that is when the teaching moments come. That said, that awareness also allows for the admission that you can give the know-how, but you can't make anyone accept it or apply it, most definitely. But when one does, then the two are stronger for it and can use that strength to shine brighter and draw the next. That's powerful, family. That's powerful. And that's definitely what this is about. You know, it's about those of us who have survived through trial and tribulation. You know, those of us who know better through experience, you know, through the pain, you know, that has burnt away some of our preoccupation with the lower things in society, you know. And now we're striving to muster up the courage and the discipline to apply truth to our everyday habits and customs and thought process, to walk in that, you know, to walk in that power, you know, like you said. And to show our people that being black is not a curse, you know. You are not criminal by nature. You know, you are not. You are more than just, you know, a second-class citizen, you know. Life can be wonderful when you know who you are and you know what you want, you know, and you're going to go after what you want by yourself if you have to, you know. I would much rather walk this path towards reconnecting with the spirit of truth, of love, of light, that some call God. I would much rather practice that relationship with other people, you know, whether it's my mate, you know. I don't want to say, we're so used to saying romantic partners, you know, but you get what I'm saying. My boo. You know what I mean? Or whether it's with my man, you know, or whether it's with my family, you know. But you know what? It's really about you, you know. It's really about you letting go of your association with the lower things in life. You know, the things that we think are so important to us, because a lot of us don't really know how to pursue a relationship with our higher selves. A lot of us don't have the courage, you know, to do so. You know, it's the fear. What stands in the way is the fear of being seen as different, the fear of being an outcast, you know, the fear of being called strange, because you're walking different, you're talking different. You see what I'm saying? You're practicing something that most people don't have an affinity for. So sometimes, you know, people will look at you like you odd, you strange. And a lot of us don't have the personal commitment to fight through that and to be who we need to be and become. Peace. Peace and elevation. Welcome to the Wake Up Project with your brother Mike X. Please tell us where you're calling from and what you want to talk about tonight. Welcome.
Peace, good brother. This is Veronica, and I'm calling from Chicago. And just very nice, very uplifting words that you are saying, especially the insert that the young lady posted in the last news, in the last feed. Yeah. But I really wanted to come in and just highlight. I know we always talk about this thing to elevate the conversation. And I know you was just talking about fear when I chimed in. I had to cut it down so I couldn't finish hearing what you mentioned about fear. And I also know that many of us are scared. Well, not us, because I believe I'm breaking out of that fear, because we know that fear is something, you only fear something that's a mystery or something that's unknown. But I really want to get into this elevated conversation and ask you a question. What does this elevated conversation look like or sound like? And then you mentioned, too, in the post about out with the old and in with the new. And I know you're talking about the paradigm of shifting our thinking. So.
I mean, in peace, family. Thank you for asking that question. What I'm going to ask you to do is free up the phone line, but definitely come back in, okay?
Okay.
Because I want to make sure that, you know, I don't lose any possible callers, you know. So, what is meant by elevating, you know, the discussion, and what does that look like? What I mean by elevating this discussion is tearing ourselves out of focusing on things outside of us that we cannot directly control. And living, you know, and living from that, you know, from that position, you know, whether it's the system, whether, you know, with the racism, you know, the gentrification, a lot of the things that's going on. A lot of us stick ourselves in focusing on that over and over and over and over and over again. And that stuff, honestly, it will make you sick. You know, it will cause your stress levels to elevate. It will cause your heart to begin to age. You know, that just made me think of Dr. King right quick, as you know, digressing for a quick second. I had read this book, Death of a King by Tavis Smiley. And he had stated in the book that when the autopsy on Dr. King was performed, that they found that Dr. King, they pronounced that Dr. King had the heart of a 60-year-old man, even though he was only 39, you know? Elevating the discussion away from thinking that our lives are to be forever dictated in reaction to outside injustice, you know? And that's kind of where we've been stuck over time. You know, we've been stuck over time. There's there's suffering, you know, there's chaos, there's confusion in the neighborhoods, then there's an awakening, and we start trying to get our act together, and we start trying to find ways to heal and repair ourselves and our relationships so that we can begin to practice life as it's supposed to be practiced, you know? And so a lot of us are living life in reverse. And we got to stop living life in reverse. Our lives are not to be subject or dictated by outside injustice. You know, our lives are to be dictated by us learning how to love ourselves again as individuals. And as we learn how to love ourselves in a practical way as individuals, this will improve our ability to be husbands, to be fathers, to be mothers, to be wives, you know, to be uncles and aunts, you know, and cousins, you know, for us once again to be able to reconnect ourselves to our higher selves, to find our gifts, to find our talents, and to live life from that perspective, you know. And what does it look like? I really hope, you know, I'm not trying to claim or, you know, present myself in any false way, but I hope that I'm showing you an echo of what it looks like, you know, through my life, you know, through me declaring for myself the freedom to focus on loving myself, to focus on being my own man, you know, to not having to go along to get along. You know, I already rejected, you know, the lowly mindset of believing that you know, that we can be nothing, part of my language, but niggas and bitches. I've already rejected that. I rejected that a long time ago, you know, but still, even though I had rejected, you know, living my life down to that lowly mindset and practice, I still hadn't claimed, you know, being able to live my life through the cultivation of my own, you know, ability to be compassionate, to be loving, to be at peace, you know, so that I can, you know, put myself first, you know, getting in contact, creating that balance between flesh and spirit and doing something different, doing something more empowered. I hope that I'm presenting, you know, the opportunity for other people as we have these discussions, for them to begin to gain the encouragement to tear themselves out of, you know, the life is a bitch and then you die mentality. You know, that you gotta be, you know, that you know, it's hell on earth. And if you know, the only way that you can get through is to practice a life of submission to addiction. You know what I'm saying? Whether that addiction is eating your turkey cheese, your beef, your hamburgers with bacon, you know what I mean, and extra cheese on it and mayo. You know what I mean? The comfort eating that we do. A lot of us, you know, we have different addictions that we have settled for. Because a lot of us don't really like the lives that we have. And we don't like the conditions that we've been forced to live up under. So it's not just addictions of, you know, drugs and alcohol, but there's also other addictions. Sexual promiscuity, you know, retail therapy. You know, some of us, man, yo, our checks is already gone before we even cash them. Because we're living our lives being shuffled around as pawns in a system that doesn't really see us as anything really more valuable than what we've been living. So elevate the discussion and elevate the practice from boycotting. You know, that's all that you can do. Instead of seeing yourself as a creator, seeing yourself as someone who can develop a product, a service, a business of your own, a business that you can feed your life energy into, that you can begin to represent the ability to show greatness in these communities that we live in, that know we are not just stuck in the position of having to wait for somebody else to provide a job for us or to provide security for us. We have to begin to see ourselves in that light. Individuals amongst us, you know, because elevate the discussion away from blaming and shaming and ridiculing and judging and complaining and protesting for somebody outside of you to do something for you. That's not what the way we're supposed to be living this life. You know, we are better than that. We are stronger than that. And we have to, each one of us, in our own private time and solitude, we have to be rooted in the practice of developing a relationship, of elevating our focus, you know, to bring forth and to find the purpose of why you are here, of why you continue to wake up the next day. If you continue to wake up, that means that there's something for you to do. And I tell you, it's not just suffer. I feel sorry for those people who feel that the only thing that can come out of a black life is suffering and exploitation and dependency. You know, I'm not going to ridicule you. I'm not going to judge you. I'm going to just say, wow, man, I hope that I can get into the position and connect with others who are striving to get into the position to where we can begin to build in the light of love and the light of truth. You know what I mean? And to really answer that question even more, Sister Veronica, I can only really answer what that looks like for me, you know, based upon me finding out what my purpose is as an individual, you know, as a brother, as a black man. I can tell you what my purpose is, and I could, you know, show you what it looks like, you know, elevating the discussion or preparing myself to take part in elevating the discussion, I can tell you what it looks like for me, because I believe that I have found my positive purpose for the most part. And now that I've found my positive purpose, I have to, constantly, continuously strive to discipline myself, to take full ownership of my positive purpose. I don't know what it is for someone outside of me. The only thing I can do is encourage you and hopefully influence you to believe that you do have a positive purpose that has nothing to do with you suffering. That has nothing to do with you feeling like you have to live a marginalized life, seeking fulfillment, through any outside relationship or association. That's all I can, that's all that I can personally do. And I hope that through that encouragement, someone like yourself or someone like, whoever's listening, I hope that, especially for the older ones, those of us who have lived long enough, man, to see the error in our ways, to see how lost, some of us may have been when we were younger, when we couldn't process rationally, where we didn't have the strength, to pull away from, the peer pressure and some of those things. Where some of us felt like, I can't live without being accepted by my peers. I have to dress in a particular way. I have to talk in a particular way. I have to, connect with others in things sometimes that I don't even like, because left by myself, I don't feel like I have the power to do what, anything significant, growing out of myself. We've been disconnected from our ability to use our humanity in the most powerful way. You know what I mean? So, sis, I hope that, that's answering some of it. And I tell you, because some of us, I really do believe that you do have to know some of your, somewhat have some type of understanding of the history that we have gone through in America, in the experience and experiment called America, in order for you to really understand why we are in the position that we're in the present. If you don't know, your past, it's hard to understand your present. And if you can't understand your present, it's almost impossible for you to make the type of power moves that you need to make as an individual that will help you to create the type of future that you want. And that's definitely the truth. But it doesn't just stop there. Knowing your history and alone, it only is supposed to free you. It's supposed to free you of continuing to submit to an abusive relationship. An abusive relationship of, again, it was slavery. Then it was segregation. Then it was Jim Crow. Then the hustling, hustling to survive. Whether you took part in drug dealing, drug using, you know what I mean? Some of us look upon that and we say, we had to do something to survive. Okay, I get it. That when you was at that level of consciousness, you took part in some things that might not have been the best things. But those things might have gotten you over the hump at that level of consciousness that you were on at that time. But a lot of us have grown past that level of consciousness, where now we know better. And we know that a lot of the things that we did wasn't so good. And now, in the light of love and the light of truth, We have to recommit ourselves to living our lives in the light of love and the light of truth. When I was ignorant, you know, some would even say when I was savage in my thinking, I lived the life of a savage, you know. But now, as I step into the light of consciousness, of knowledge of self, I have to begin to show myself approved in that knowledge of self. I have to begin to walk upright. I got to begin to treat my brothers better, with love and compassion and respect, instead of division and trying to play tough Tony. And I'm going to get my rocks off and feel better by hurting and maiming and killing my brother. We got to do better than that, man, in the light of love and the light of truth. And everyone is not at that level. But we don't need everybody to be at that level for us, those of us who are, to begin. And I say peace and elevation to those who are doing so. You know what I mean? Because there are a lot of people who are definitely doing so. I shared this, I guess you could call it a meme, you know, on my post, on my Facebook page advertising this show tonight. Shout out to everyone transcending a belief, behavior, habit, or vibration that no longer serves them. You know, this is not about limitation. This is not about being stagnant. This is about giving yourself permission to see the greatness in yourself. And that's what a show like this is what a conversation like this is about. And there's some things that we're going to be doing. And let's keep it 100. Some of us have been in the habit of being wage earners. Some of us have never saw ourselves being anything but a wage earner. What do you mean a wage earner? You know, someone who works in somebody else's corporation or company, you know, where you can give the best of your life, the best years of your life, and then you can be let go arbitrarily at any time with nothing really to show for it. So a lot of us have been raised in that type of mindset, elevating the discussion from go to school, get an education so you can get a good job, is an old mindset. Elevating the discussion from that is us trying to figure out, how do we enter into the field of entrepreneurialism? How do we begin to brand, you know, our creative gifts and talents? You know what I mean? Like, you know, these are some of the elevated discussions that we have to begin to have. How do we get out of feeling like, you know, life is an itch and then you die, you know, and in order to get through the wear and tear of being a pawn in somebody else's game again, as you commit yourself, you know, to going to the bar week after week. You know what I mean? I got to let my hair down. I got to get, you know, I got to get right. Moving on from that, and I know that this touches home for some, and I'm not saying this as if I think I'm better than you, you know, because some of the people who know me and know my history back in Edenwald, where I grew up in, you know, those who knew me around the late 80s and early 90s, before I had my awakening to higher truths and consciousness, they'll remember that I was down with a group that they called the 40 posse, you know? And we used to spend all of our time, night after night, on the corner of 225th and Laconia, you know? A lot of us, we didn't know what life was about. A lot of us didn't know what black pride and discipline and knowledge of self is supposed to, you know, what those things mean. We didn't even know that those things were things, you know, that we can use and apply to our lives to bring more value to our lives. So at that time, a lot of us, we just huddled together in that lack of purpose, you know, smoking, drinking, you know, just being out there. But when the light of truth came knocking, I'll say for myself, I couldn't continue to spend night after night on the corner, smoking weed and drinking alcohol and cigarettes, you know, because I had started learning about people like Malcolm X, people who lived with a dignity and a morality, and they had a consciousness that made their words powerful, and through their words they spoke and breathed life into the conception of a new reality where we wasn't, you know, just drug dealers and criminals, but we was, you know, they talked about us being able to live our lives with dignity and respect, where we can appreciate our women and not just use them as sexual playthings, you know, where we can live our lives in a way where we can heal ourselves and create the change in ourselves that we wanted to see in our neighborhoods and in our family. The more I started reading those books, the less I was able to stand on that corner. You know what I mean? I couldn't do it anymore. And so I left the corner and I went into my local community center. Shout out to the Edenwald Gun Hill Neighborhood Center, located in Edenwald Projects. Yeah, I know it's not called that anymore. But I went into my local community center when I started to gain a knowledge of self, and I decided that I wanted to be like Malcolm. As I learned more and more, I wanted to be able to help save my community. So I started to use the power of my pen, and I started writing essays of empowerment and looking for resources to help me with that project. I wandered into my local community center, asking for them to help me to make some copies of the essays I was writing that I would hand out in my travels. You know what I mean? Trying to spark a black awakening. And that led me to the field that I've been working in for the last 28 years, working with young people. It started out first with me volunteering in the community center, Edenwald Gun Hill Neighborhood Center in Edenwald Projects, located in the Northeast Bronx, third largest project development in New York City, where I would go into the community center and I would volunteer to talk and speak to the young people who lived in Edenwald, who was in the outreach program at that time. And that led to me, you know, after a while of me volunteering, they put me on a payroll as an outreach worker. And my professional life as someone who has worked with young people for nearly 30 years now had begun. And I've worked in the midnight basketball. I've worked in the group homes, the non-secure detention. You know, I've worked in a whole lot of different fields working with young people. And I'll tell you now, man, from my lips to the mind of the Most High God, the eternal spirit of truth that some call God, I'm at a point now where after working with young people and all of those various companies, you know, a lot of those companies and a lot of those jobs were not situated in a way to get at the root of why there's so much social upheaval, you know, so much social disconnect. Yo, break that down. What do you mean social upheaval, social disconnect? I'm talking about the destruction of the black and brown families in the inner city neighborhoods. That's what I'm talking about. A lot of the group homes, a lot of the community centers, and a lot of the programs that have been put in place to strive to serve the inner city neighborhoods, the projects. A lot of those programs are not situated to get to the root of why there's so much social upheaval in the black family, in the black neighborhoods. And so for me, as an individual, I'm looking not so much to continue to try to fit myself into somebody else's corporation or company. And don't get me wrong, I've loved and I've also suffered through some of my time working with young people. I've loved the ability to have access to young people and to strive to overflow my love of consciousness, my love of knowledge, wisdom, understanding, and truth, to strive to impact the young people that I've come across in the last 30 years. There's been some pain there because I've saw a lot of, I'll talk about that at another time. But there are young people that are not so young anymore. Some of them are husbands and wives now. Some of them are mothers and fathers now. And some of them have a lot of love for your brother Mike X. You know what I mean? But I digressed a little bit. Even though I could say that, I know it's time for us to learn how to enter into business creation. You know, program startup. Learning how to seek funding, and not just seek funding through the traditional backing, you know, of, you know, corporate philanthropy. But we got to begin to learn how to use our creativity and our imagination, and also discipline, to stop spending up all our money on things that keep us stuck and being down and out. Some of us have sneaker habits. I've had one. Some of us have, again, I was talking about the comfort eating. Some of us are into that retail therapy. Some of us are spending up all of the resources that would help us to open up our own, so that we can support ourselves and provide jobs and opportunities for ourselves, to where we didn't have to sacrifice our dignity to work up in somebody else's establishment. That's what elevating the discussion is about. You know what I mean? And I'm looking for y'all. I'm looking for some of y'all who feel me to help me to elevate this discussion away from griping, whining, and complaining about what they've done to us or what they're still trying to do to us. And I'm not, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that we should not address some of these things, but I'm saying that there are some of us who are ready to take it to the next level of ownership, personal ownership, you know, first and foremost of our lives, of the way we live our lives, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, who are ready to step to living on a higher level of existence, man. There's some of us who are ready for that. And I'm going to be your accountability partner. I guarantee you, I promise you, as long as there's life in this body, man, I'm going to keep on fighting, man. You're not alone. I almost broke out into Michael Jackson. You are not alone. Yeah, I know that's corny, but that's what popped in my head when I said that. You are not alone, family. I'm with you, and there are some others that are with you as well. And we have to fight in our own individual lives to separate ourselves from the same old hamster on a spinning wheel conversations. If we are truly free, then we have to prove that we're free. This is how we begin to gain back the love and trust and respect from our youth. We have to begin to show that we're not soft, that we're not weak, that we're not just going to turn over, man, and kill over as we get older, man. So, Sister V, I thank you for asking that question. This is some of what elevating the discussion is about. I hope in the next couple of weeks for us to have specific conversations with your help. Some of you that I have been talking with. We need to have conversations about how to heal the rift between our men and our women. We have to have conversations on how we can save not just our youth, but I'll say our young girls, man. Our young girls are very vulnerable right now. Yeah, the boys are vulnerable too. But the thing about our young girls is they're not just vulnerable in a way because they're black, because they're vulnerable because of that. But they're also vulnerable, man, because a lot of our young boys have been programmed through the misogyny that has infected and corrupted hip-hop and R&B to where a lot of our boys show no love, no respect for the sanctity of the emerging womanhood in our little girls. Things have gotten so bad, man, that in my time in working with young girls, some of them have begun to participate in their own victimization of other young girls. I wasn't planning to go into this tonight, man, but, the Spirit is moving me to address this right quick. Some of our young girls, what do you call that? Human trafficking. And as somebody who's worked with young people, I'm not just talking about something that I've seen on TV and in the news. I've experienced up close and personal some of our young girls who have gotten caught up in not just being victimized in that, but taking on the role of helping to victimize other naive, young, impressionable girls. We got a lot of work to do, man. We got a lot of work to do. Let me go to some of the conversations, check back on the live feed. What up, nephew? I see you. Don't know if you still here, but what up? Missed you over this weekend. Sister Tanya still with us. She says holding yourself accountable for change. change begin with you. Most definitely. She says, take the time to look in the mirror and judge yourself. Do what you need to do to become that person that positively impact others. Powerful, powerful, sis. Powerful. That's one of the most vulnerable moments, man, in the life of the individual. When you standing in front of that bathroom mirror in the morning, you know. And when you know, once you begin to know better, if you fail to begin to do better, that knowing better will begin to beat the hell out of you. Your conscience, you know that voice, and some call that an echo of the spirit of the Most High. That voice inside your head that sometimes says, yo, don't do that. Or yo, get it going. Or yo, you procrastinating. You need to push a little harder. When you begin to know better and you refuse to commit yourself to doing better, it's not an easy thing to stand in that bathroom mirror. It's not an easy thing to look at yourself and know that you fronting. You fronting on the mission and purpose of striving to become better, to become great again. And this is why some of us who are afraid to take that personal commitment. This is why, some amongst us, they have what I call a consciousness circuit breaker. A consciousness circuit breaker. You ever was having a conversation with someone, and I'm talking to a lot of the people who are, striving to lead by example and striving to spread consciousness, and you talking to someone and you could tell that they're not there anymore. What do you mean, Brother Mike? They disappeared? Nah, I'm not saying that they disappeared. I'm saying that they're still there physically, but their attention has disappeared, because they don't want to have that conversation, that higher conversation of personal responsibility. Because they know if they stay in that conversation too long, that they're not going to be able to go back to the so-called ignorance or the so-called bliss of ignorance, where they can continue to just rip and run with no conscience and do whatever the heck they want. They know that once that consciousness rises to a certain level, that to go contrary to that consciousness will cause them great pain. You know what I mean? And some of y'all, I know y'all feel what I'm talking about. My brother, I got to get with you, family, for some of them workouts that I see you sharing with us, man, through Facebook. My brother Timothy, he says, timing is everything. My brother, I salute you, bro. The ancestors are certain that you are going to be great and help save some of our people. I'm just one brother who's answering the call, man. I'm just one who's answering the call. And I definitely hope that sometime in the near future, bro, that we can get together like we used to when we was working up in CV, man, dropping knowledge, dropping science, sharing life experiences, man, with the young brothers like we used to do. I hope for us to be able to get back to that real soon. But I know in the meantime, I know and see who you are, and I'm striving to, do the same. Sister LP says you can't unsee the light or unhear the truth. Sister LP is on fire today. because we was talking a little earlier. I hope you wrote that one down, sis. You can't unsee the light or unhear the truth. My near and dear friend, who I hope is still here, Shayna, one of my nearest and dearest friends. We don't get a chance to see each other that often or talk to one another that often, but we share a great love and appreciation for one another. But I still want to hear your voice soon. Miss Whitley Houston. We need to talk, family. I pray that everything is going well with you. Peace to Don Toya. You know, so we still here, family. We still here. The call-in number is 718-405-4959 or 914-969-6499. I'm going to ask you to do me a favor in preparing yourself for participating in the elevation of our discourse, our discussion, our dialogue. You got to become an active reader. You know, I saw one of those memes that says all great leaders are readers. You have to begin to read. Reading, wow. Reading saved my life, man. And I believe that one of my purposes on this earth was to be someone who reads for empowerment, not just for entertainment, but reads for empowerment. I've always been a reader since I was a little boy. The problem was that at the time when I was coming up, there was no movement for Black/African empowerment. There was no real strong leadership out in the communities, at least in the community that I grew up in the 70s and the 80s. So I had a gift and a desire and a thirst for reading and for knowledge. You know, I'm a history buff. I love history, you know. But when I was little, the only thing that I had access to read in the public school that I grew up in was his story. And even so, I still was so enamored of history that I read his story. And I could tell you all about the colonial, imperialistic efforts coming out of Europe, coming out of France, coming out of Spain, coming out of England to conquer the earth and to bend the earth to white Eurocentric rule and domination. I was reading all about that stuff as a little kid. I was reading about Marco Polo and his journey to meet up with Kublai Khan. I was reading all about Magellan, you know, and his circling the globe, supposedly being the first one to circle the globe, his expedition. I could tell you all about Balboa and him supposedly being the one who discovered the Pacific Ocean. I could tell you all about, you know, Ponce de Leon and him trying to find the fountain of youth, so to speak, and Columbus, you know, discovering supposedly America. I could tell you all about those things. I was a tremendous reader as a young boy. But knowing all about these tales of European colonialism and imperialism and domination and conquering, it didn't challenge me to seek a life of Black excellence. through acquiring knowledge. It didn't prompt me to seek to be educationally excellent in school. And by the time I was in 3rd grade, I stopped trying. Like a lot of our young boys, particularly, and girls, they stopped trying in these schools because a lot of times they don't see black excellence reflected in the curriculums that these schools are programming them with. We got a bad rap. They've called us dropouts, and juvenile delinquents, because a lot of us check out of school at an early age. It's not that we can't be excellent educationally, academically, but it's that we've been brainwashed into thinking that is being white. Being smart is being white, or is being a nerd, And so this is why a lot of us reject trying to, achieve academically in school. I know as much as I am a student, and I've been reading for empowerment every single day, you'll never find Brother Mike without a book for the last 27 years. And as long as I'm alive, I'm going to continue to strive to grow in relationship with the truth, to apply the power of that truth to my life so that I can overflow that power into my relationships. Peace and elevation. Welcome to the Wake Up Project. Let's know who's speaking, and let us know what's on your mind tonight.
This is Veronica calling in again.
Welcome back.
I know, right? I just had to call in because it was pressed upon me when you talked about reading and how important it is. Brother, I am an avid reader. I love to read. And my passion for reading has gotten intense after I had a brain stroke a couple of years ago. So it's also for me, to gain that comprehension and the skills to decipher what I'm reading through my eyes, through what I understand. But anyway, I want to go back a little farther. When I was a little girl, I was handed the true romance books. And I didn't know then, but at that particular time, even though the stories was long as heck, it really equipped me for reading reading long articles, and I would just read all kind of crazy stuff. But now I understand that was preparing me for the things I'm reading now. And I'm going to tell you something about reading. Reading is, of course, it's fundamental, but at the same time, it opens you up for a different understanding, and you're able to go in and analyze any type of subject that you're looking at. See, I found myself now when I'm reading politics, when I'm trying to learn policy, and I'm trying to learn how things operate, how things go, it's easier for me to grab hold to it because I'm an avid reader. But we're talking about elevating the conversation. I just had to get that burning desire, and just tell everybody the reading is so fundamental, it's so beautiful, it's so wonderful. It's a very uplifting, empowering thing to really read. And that's pretty much what I had, brother. Just want to share that with the family.
Thank you, sis. Thank you. So let me speak to that right quick. Reading, the ability to read. Let's start here. It was once upon a time that reading was punishable by death. If they caught you as a black person reading, it was punishable by death.
Right.
And the reason why is because they knew they wanted us to be ignorant.
Right.
Because there's a saying, knowledge rules the world while ignorance bears the burden. Knowledge rules the world while ignorance bears the burden. And they wanted us to be nothing but burden bearers. They didn't want us with laying claim to the empowerment that comes through feeding knowledge and information into your mental faculties so that you can begin to think, and you can begin to, upon the ability to begin to think, you can begin to choose, you know, how you want to live your life.
Right.
And it opens you up to the desire to live an empowered life, you know, as opposed to living a life of struggling and suffering, you know, and being dependent upon and being abused by somebody else. And so this is why they wanted to keep us from being able to learn to read and write. And I would dare say that this is why even today it's not punishable necessarily for you to learn to read and write, but we've been tricked into giving up our ability to read and write today. Because again, I would dare say that within the Black/African neighborhood, peoples of color, reading has become associated again with being white or being a nerd. And a lot of us don't want to be associated with being white or being a nerd. So a lot of us choose to live our lives through physical expression, whether we're trying to be, you know, hard rock, like they used to say back in the days, being a tough guy. You know, this is the highest expression without access to the higher faculties of knowledge, you know, wisdom, understanding, truth, spirituality. You get trapped in your physicality. And so a lot of us are, you know, being trapped in that physicality. The highest expression that we can give in that physicality is being a tough guy, some of us. I'm going to prove my manliness, you know, by how I can dominate my brother and subjugate my brother to being, you know, taken advantage of. Or I'm going to manifest and show my manliness by sexual conquest, you know, of the female principle. And this is what that relegates us to when we lose the ability to read for empowerment. You know what I mean? And I'll just say this, and then you know, we coming down to 13 minutes. I appreciate everyone who's come through tonight. Some was here, some left. But we're going to have a record of this show. And I ask those of you, you know, who feel the call to share this show. Share it on your timeline on Facebook. Tag some of your friends in it. You know what I mean? Spread the message. The art of studying, sis. And I'd like to hear, you know, at some point from some of the other students, you know, who know and practice, you know, seeking truth, seeking knowledge, you know, seeking wisdom, seeking understanding, seeking truth, so that they can better their lives through that practice, through that submission to higher truths. I'd like to hear some of their thoughts on the art of study. But for me, this is how it went for me. Graduating into not just reading for entertainment, because like I told you, I used to read, you know, his story when I was a child. I was definitely, like a lot of the brothers in the neighborhoods, I was a comic book buff, you know, so I was all into the comic books. But that was reading for entertainment. That wasn't necessarily reading for empowerment. That type of reading didn't challenge me and help me to take positive ownership of my life. But when I as an adult, when I was introduced to the autobiography of Malcolm X,
right,
that was my first book that challenged me to strive to educate myself for empowerment, to strive to educate myself for personal responsibility taking of my own life as a black man, as a member of an embattled, besieged community. And as I read the autobiography of Malcolm, the autobiography of Malcolm introduced me to other people, other organizations, you know, and I took note of these other people and other organizations, you know, that the autobiography of Malcolm led me to. I found Martin Luther King in the autobiography of Malcolm. I found Elijah Muhammad in the autobiography of Malcolm. I found the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee in the autobiography of Malcolm. I found W.E.B. Du Bois, you know, who some believe was one of the, you know, one if not the smartest black man that we've had, you know, who had a history of activism, you know, a founder of the NAACP. I found Marcus Garvey,
right,
the founder of the Universal Negro Improvement Association, who some say, you know, was the biggest and strongest organization of black people around this world. Some say that had like 6 million members at some point. So I found all of these different people in the autobiography. And so it gave me, after I finished the autobiography, it gave me, you know, people to seek information on so that I can grow my understanding and begin to add on, you know, to the consciousness that began to emerge through the reading of the autobiography. And so I found books and information on Martin Luther King. I found books and information and went after and found books and information on W.E.B. Du Bois, on Elijah Muhammad, on Marcus Garvey. And my consciousness, my understanding of what we've been through in Black America, it became larger and larger and larger as I sought this information, you know. And now, you know, where I'm at now, I feel like I feel like I took the course and passed with flying colors. When you talk about the subject of black empowerment, I believe that I have a firm grasp on, you know, what black empowerment is about and what kind of moves we need to be able to make black empowerment real. And once you master a subject, you don't continue. Once you master a course and pass the course, you don't keep on taking the course over and over and over and over and over again. Because that stagnates you. And not only does it stagnate you, it stagnates other people that you can positively impact and influence. So I've moved on, you know, that's always going to be a part of me, you know, but I've moved on to striving to learn and practice the transformational power in what is called and known as spirituality or spiritual seeking, believing that the truth is the most powerful and potent force in the universe. And that as you seek and learn the truth and apply it to whatever it is that you want to master, you begin to be able to transform yourself.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So I'm going to let you, anything you have to say, because we're coming down to 5 minutes, and I'm going to take the last 5 minutes to close out the show.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, when it comes to reading, for me, I found that the most empowering thing is to look up the words that you have and absolutely no idea what it means, to take the time to define the words that you really try to skip over. And to me, that's the most empowering process of this developmental process of reading. For me, it's just developing myself. And everything I read, I take a piece of something with me to put inside me to continue to develop myself and grow. So I just want to just add that little piece. That's it, brother.
Already, sis. And, you know, according to the scripture, Jesus said, you shall know the truth, and the truth will make you free.
Right.
According
it's
to
freedom.
According to the sayings, I believe, of the Prophet Muhammad, he said, seek knowledge from the cradle to the grave. We have the ability to grow in relationship with the truth as we seek it over time, as we grow in our degree, in degree by degree of consciousness with that truth, applying that truth. We grow in relationship with the Most High, the Creator, to become little gods and goddesses on this earth. And a lot of us, we're afraid to seize that power, to even begin to think of ourselves in that way. A lot of us are afraid, but some of us are not. As I said in one of the shows that passed, in Psalms 82 verse 6, it says, according to whatever, interpretation, but it says, have not you heard that ye are all gods, children of the Most High God? That's a call. That's a challenge. For us to rise up out of the lowly thinking and lowly living that some of us have allowed ourselves to suffer through. Those of us who know better, we have to begin or continue to grow into that consciousness. Out with the old, in with the new, out with the old. Anything, any obsession, any connection that you practiced in your years of ignorance, of not knowing better, that led you towards being other than yourself, you got to let that go. You got to let that go. I'm challenging myself. There's things that I've been let go years ago. I've been let go to swine about 30 years ago. And I know some people will get offended, and I'm not saying this to offend. I'm saying this, that in the knowledge of truth, I know that some of these things are hyper destructive to our lives and to our potential. I was able to replace my cigarette addiction with a knowledge, wisdom, understanding, and truth addiction. When I was a teenager, the consumption of alcohol didn't have me. That didn't have me. The consumption of weed didn't have me. But the consumption of cigarettes had me. And at one point in my life, I didn't believe that I would ever be able to get out from under that addiction. But when the light of truth, came into my life, and I began to become and challenged to let go of things that were holding me back and holding me down and having me in a position of risking my life, I began to let go of these addictions, and I took a positive addiction to take its place. And that's my love of studying, my love of seeking truth. So I replaced a positive addiction. I replaced a positive addiction to take the place of that negative addiction. You know what I mean? And I say this, family, as you begin to tear yourself out of these lower associations with self-destructive behaviors and habits that you share with other people, sometimes the only thing you will have to give you comfort is the truth. Sometimes you will feel alone. A lot of times you'll feel alone. Some people that you might have been rocking with your whole life, when you decide that you want to change your life and transform and take it to a higher level, you might find, man, that some people don't want to be around you no more. Because they'll feel like if you're around, they're not going to be able to, you know, enjoy their blissful ignorance. But I challenge you to recognize and realize that your life has value, that you are a child of God, the Most High, that you do have the ability to speak life, to become a healer, to shine compassion and mercy and empathy upon a dark and decaying world. And when you realize that your life has that type of value, you won't feel comfortable in doing things anymore that might risk that life or destroy that life. So having said that, family, I say peace and elevation to the family. I ask you to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Brother Mike X Speaks, BRUTHAMIKEX on YouTube. I ask you to connect with me on Instagram. Also, and you can see it under the screen, BRUTHAMIKEX on Instagram. And also, you know, well, if you're looking at this, most likely you already got me on Facebook. Have a great and wonderful night, family. And please think about some of the things that we said tonight. And let us figure out how we can begin to work with one another, to use our individual strengths to cover up our collective weaknesses. I love you, family. Peace.
InTheMixRadio.com. Set it and forget it.